Hi, let's talk about a joy that we are pulling ourselves away from bit by bit, but quite perceptibly so over time. And that too despite becoming better and better educated. The joy of reading. As we talk about the joy of reading, I will start with these words from H.G. Wells. I had just taken to reading, I had just discovered the art of leaving my body to sit impassive in a crumpled up attitude in a chair or sofa, while I wandered over the hills and far away in noble company and new scenes. My world began to expand very rapidly. The reading habit had got me securely. That's what reading does to you. It transports you to a different time or a different world while still leaving your imagination a great deal of liberty to flex itself. When we watch a movie, we see how well the director and the actors depict a situation. When we read, we are our own director and actor to relive the situation in our mind. So reading, therefore, is a habit you cultivate. It doesn't come easy. It doesn't come automatically. That habit involves staring at the first few words on the first page until first the lines and then the pages begin to make sense, and then thinking about them until you have your own interpretation of what you're reading. There's no substitute for reading a book, even if more than ever we seem to be losing the knack. Instead, we have learned the art of faking cultural literacy. As Carl Taro Greenfield recently wrote in the New York Times a couple of years ago, what we all feel now is the constant pressure to know enough at all times, lest we be revealed as culturally illiterate. What matters to us, awash in petabytes of data, is not necessarily having actually consumed this content firsthand, but simply knowing that it exists. This is not, however, something entirely new. Book lovers of the past have accumulated a lot more than they could read. Arthur Schopenhauer said some 70 and 80 years ago, one usually confuses the purchase of books with the acquisition of their contents. Now, luckily, my generation and a few generations on either side, a couple that followed us and a few before us, have probably consumed the largest number of books in history because of books becoming more accessible and affordable than ever, while we still had time and passion for paper and we were still conversant in the joy of reading. Logically, the cheap mass availability of e-books should mean that we now read more books than ever before. But that's not the case, because the perennial desire to look more intelligent and informed than we are, coupled with a surfeit of knowledge and text in the digital age, has meant that we increasingly lack the time and drive to engage with anything more than a few lines befitting tweets, WhatsApp, or Facebook status updates, or Instagram, or whatever. Also, the internet has made it much easier to pretend without having really experienced. So yes, you don't have to be dishonest about it, but it happens naturally also sometimes when you read so much about things. You can Google, you read accounts of people, numerous people who have encountered the same situation, same place, same thing firsthand, and you can kind of start quasi experiencing it and then expressing yourself as such. But the pleasure of reading that involved serenity, privacy, and contemplation is now a fading trade. Books that require true effort are now read less. Man Booker Prize winner Eleanor Catton says consumerism, requiring its products to be both endlessly desirable and endlessly disposable, can't make sense of art which is neither. And yes, she's right, because art is either readily disposable or endlessly desirable, eternally desirable. It can be both. So books like Pride and Prejudice or War and Peace are not meant to be whisked through. They are intended to deepen our soul and to help us discover the rush of excitement and recognition that occurs when we look up from a great book and think, yes, the world is like that. Yes, it was like that. When we have sound reading habits, we know to keep our opinions in any matter to ourselves until we are sure what they are. If you want to discover the temperament to sit and read, then from time to time get hold of a book and surround yourself with a profound silence that makes reading irresistible. In intimacy with the tete-a-tete attention they merit, books are not tools to withdraw from the world, but rather to understand and interact with it. If you have trouble sitting down to read, it's not a malfunction of desire but of focus. The capacity to calm your mind long enough to dwell in someone else's world and to let that someone else dwell in yours, that's the art of reading. If you pay attention, you will see that your distractions are rarely, if ever, of enduring significance, but rather the usual continuing frivolities. Reading is the only art in which we let ourselves merge with the consciousness of another person. While we possess the books we read, they possess us also, filling us with ideas and feelings, and to that extent becoming a part of us, helping us grow, helping us learn, helping us change, helping us see things in a different manner. Books help us grow by affording us access to experience other than ours. But for that to happen, we need a certain calm in a world where every routine is tweeted and advertised on Facebook or WhatsApp. So we are the product of a culture that makes reacting quickly more important than thinking. Books slow us down, and that's why we are wary of them. We are wary of slowing down in this world. Where novelty is an imperative, books don't matter because by their nature, books are never new enough. And there are always new things going on. I, for instance, am constantly preyed upon by the intrusion of the buzz, the murmur that there is something out there that demands my attention, or there's something happening in the world that I ought to know, something on email, something on Twitter, Facebook, or the internet, when in fact it's nothing but the anxiety of our age. In a world that requires us to know everything instantly, it's difficult to give ourselves the space to contemplate. But that is where reading becomes so important, because it requires that space. Yes, you need that space. Charles Bowden writes in his book, Some of the Dead Are Still Breathing, I cannot feel alert unless I push past the point where I have control. Or William James, I am reminded, once said, my experience is what I agree to attend to. Now, I am using these statements in the context of reading to remind you that reading is an activity that helps us both escape and be engaged at the same time. You lose control, but you're more in contact with yourself and more aware of where you belong in a world of limitless choices, prospects, and distractions. So my dear friends, I want you to try and discover the immense joy, the immense purpose that reading contains. That'll take some efforts, right? Well, happy start then. Take care. Thank you.